The Fiend returned on SmackDown. The Fiend returned and he aligned with Alexa Bliss and attacked Kevin Owens, who was also there for some reason. Welcome to the WrestleTalk review, WrestleTalk podcast review of SmackDown. I am Corporate Chopper. I'm joined by Andy Datson. And yeah, let's get straight into it. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about on this SmackDown review, the main talking point, is that The Fiend finally returned to SmackDown. It hasn't been seen since Payback at the end of August. So he's been gone for pretty much a month. Seen Bray Wyatt on the Firefly Funhouse with, Wobbly Walrus getting introduced and all that stuff, but we haven't seen The Fiend. Obviously, we'd had loads of teasers with the Alexa Bliss stuff, and I said on last week's review, I was like, man, this Alexa Bliss story is really good, but I want something else to happen now. I'm getting a bit bored of this whole, someone says The Fiend, and she does a Sister Abigail thing. Okay, I get it. Now, what's the next step? This was the next step.
They've clearly been watching you, Pete. They've clearly been watching you. They thought, oh, man, well, if that guy wants something more, we're going to bring back The Fiend for the first time in a long time. And you know what? It was great to see him.
It was, wasn't it?
Now, sometimes you sort of forget that actually he's pretty spooky. And he really adds like an extra dimension to the show. And like, I'm not the sort of biggest fan of sort of supernatural gimmicks. I think they're a bit hokey, especially in sort of 2020 when no one's really involved in the kind of kayfabe side of things anymore. But he's sort of the right level of doing it. And sort of once again, you're thinking, wow, who's writing on SmackDown and who's writing on Raw? Because you think, wow, they're really doing good things on SmackDown. You sort of, every time you think, oh, the way that this is how they should do this, they may not do it exactly that way, but they do it in another good way rather than the way they've been doing it on Raw, which is, what's the most boring way we can do this? And then doing that.
Yes, exactly. But the segment itself, it was the Kevin Owens show. Kevin Owens, a Raw talent, was brought over to SmackDown for reasons. What is the brand split? It's the draft next week. What's the point? Why even have a draft if people can just turn up anyway? And they said it's part of, the cross-brand invitational, which apparently was quarterly the last time it happened with Cesaro and Nakamura, which was like a few weeks ago. So it's a really quick quarter, if that's the case.
Maybe that was the end of the quarter, and this is the start of a new quarter.
And this is the start of the quarter, which doesn't make sense. It is. Kevin Owens is back next week, so
No, it is, because it's October, November, December. That's 3 months of the year. That is a quarter, and it's just the start of. So they're not allowed any more now for the rest of the year.
Apart from next week when Kevin Owens comes back, but
he's on the draft.
Shut up. He's not been drafted yet, so they shouldn't have announced it. They should have just said he's here. Oh wow, what a crazy coincidence! He got drafted to SmackDown. But yes, it was Kevin Owens show with Alexa Bliss as his guest. Kevin Owens comes out wearing a Street Profits shirt because why not, I guess. And I really like the back and forth between him and Alexa because it felt, obviously it was very scripted, but they made it feel somewhat natural, which is nice. Kevin Owens obviously had an amazing promo, and Alexa I think did really well as well, of Kevin just being like, just questioning her about this new kind of like darkness that she's got and why she's changing and all that stuff. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm fine. And then he's like, come on, you've quite clearly changed. And she's like, yeah, people change. Like, you should try it sometime. Which I thought was a great line. Yeah. And then Alexa cut this really good part of the promo, I thought, when she essentially outlined how she feels about the Fiend, but she managed to convey such like fear in her voice and her facial expression, or saying how much she like not necessarily idolized him, but was like enthralled by him. And she said like he's terrifying and captivating at the same time, and her voice was like shaking the whole time she was doing it. She's like, have you ever been around him? Like it was a really good promo. I really, really liked it. And then the next line really got me as well, where Kevin just really bluntly just went, you've been brainwashed. And Alexa just said, yeah, I have. My brain has been washed. Now the lies have been washed away, and now I can see the truth. It's just it's a really hokey back and forth, but they made it really work. It felt like it was really natural.
It's a religious cult almost, but like, what was I going to say? I had something good, Pete. I had something good I was going to say, but me, I forget things very quickly. What was I going to say?
Well, while you're thinking of that, go to the next bit where, the other bit I really liked from this was Kevin Owens not being an idiot and him just knowing, just like, he's here, isn't he? Like he's gonna come get me, which makes a lot of sense because that's what the Fiend does. And Alexa had a brilliant response of, he's everywhere, and I can hear him now. Let him in. And as she said that, lights cut out. Fiend comes out. Spooky violins play, red lights and everything. Mandible claw to Kevin Owens down to the ground. Turns around to Alexa, who has not moved, who's just continuing to sit in her seat as she was before, and he just extends his hand out. Alexa takes it, and she stands up, and then it cuts. And I was like, that's really cool. I'm really into this. Yeah, it was a really, really good segment, and it's just what I wanted. It was the next part of the story. It was perfect.
It's that kind of, I remember it, it's that kind of sort of Stockholm syndrome thing where you sort of start to feel kind of attachment to your captor. Yes. And that's clearly the sort of thing that they're going for. Like she is terrified of him, like you would be of someone who's kidnapped you, but also you're like, no, but he's misunderstood. You don't understand him the way I understand him. And also I figured it out. Kevin Owens was swapped for Dana Brooke.
You reckon?
Yeah, because obviously they swapped AJ Styles for Mandy Rose. So they're done now the other way. Kevin Owens for Dana Brooke. It's a really fair deal there for both Raw and SmackDown.
Totally, yeah, it makes perfect sense. I thought this was really, really interesting. I'm still really invested in this Alexa feud. It's the second best thing on the show behind Roman, but not by much, though. I'm really, really liking this story. I really don't know where it's going to go from here. I don't know whether Kevin's going to get drafted. Like we mentioned, it's the draft next week on SmackDown. So I don't know whether Owens is going to get drafted and he's going to enter straight into a feud with The Fiend, which I'd be all for. Or whether it's going to be The Fiend is going to kind of come out and just wreak havoc on random people that Alexa takes beef with. There's loads of different ways it can go. I mean, it did get announced next week on the draft show that it will be Fiend versus Kevin Owens. The Fiend's first SmackDown match. Mental, that.
Here's what I want to see. Has he never had a Bray Wyatt match?
He might have had a Bray Wyatt match, but The Fiend has never appeared on SmackDown, which is crazy. Never wrestled on SmackDown, I should say.
What I want to see is The Fiend destroy Kevin Owens and then Kevin Owens get drafted to NXT on the Wednesday.
I mean, NXT is probably not part of the draft because Triple H said he didn't know anything about it and was being locked out of the plans and had to tune in and wait and see what happens with his brand. But that would make so much sense if The Fiend attacked him and then he reverted to his old Kevin Owens and went down to NXT again. Oh, that would be so good. I'll do that, please. I really want that now. Mainly because I just want that Kevin Owens back in NXT because he was really, 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 really good. But yes, there's lots of ways this feud can go, and I'm thoroughly excited for all of them. I think
it's for Mixed Match Challenge. It's the return of Mixed Match Challenge. It'll be
Alexa
Kevin
and
Owens,
The Fiend.
Yeah, and Kevin Owens and Dana Brooke.
Yeah,
because they swap for each other.
What a great pairing that.
Yeah, and then you've got the Braun Strowman being really jealous because The Fiend's pairing with Alexa, because obviously they had Little and Big and Little, what it was called last year. And that's how you continue their feud. It's Mixed Match Challenge.
It's so perfect, and it makes perfect sense also that Braun was on Raw Underground as well. It fits in so well somehow.
Its name has the word Raw in it.
Sort
of. Row.
Monday Night Row. But anyway, really, really good segment. Thoroughly excited for where this next thing goes.